With every Bloodthirster AD carry being so unbelievably overtuned, Ezreal and Corki are really suffering right now. However, there's a way of playing Ezreal that will allow you to build Bloodthirster and deal a lot of extra damage in the later stages of the game. You'll have 50% crit with a Sense Reaver and Bloodthirster, and today I'm going to show you what you can do with this item build. But before we hop into the video, make sure to follow Chronix in the description below because this gameplay is from him. And now let's talk about the item build. To make sure that Ezreal is on par with other AD carries, we need to go for full laning power, and in this case we go for Kraken Slayer and Brutal. With this we have so much extra laning power, you have no idea how much damage Ezreal can actually do. Next it is a Giant Slayer because it's just the best rune available. Coup de Grace literally sucks, Last Stand is pointless for your champion, and there's just no other rune that comes remotely close. After this, it's about the Bloodline, because Bloodline is free sustain, and there's one thing Bloodline allows us to do, and that is skipping out on Riftmaker. After this, we go for Bone Plating for a better laning phase, and now let's talk about the real items. You start with a Monomune and go instantly into Gluttonous Greaves. With this, you basically make up for all the vamp you're missing out from Riftmaker and have a lot of extra AD. Please do not fall into the trap of going CDR boots or boots of lucidity on Ezreal. It is just awful. You really want the 35 AD from these boots and the Omnivamp. After this, you'll go for a Sheen and you'll sit on that Sheen item. Then after this, you'll go for a Sense Reaver, and only after this you'll complete the Trinity Force. With all of this done, you will then go into the Bloodthirster, and for your last item, you go into Cyrilda's Grudge. And for your enchantment, obviously most of the time you'll go for Quicksilver, and if you really need it, just go for Stasis. And with all of this said, why aren't you subscribed yet? You want more free content like this? Then just follow us and you'll get it basically every day or every other day. And now, let's hop right into the gameplay. Hello and welcome back to another RiftGuides WildRift video. Today we are going to take a look at Ezreal, and I gave Chronix a new build for Ezreal and it features Bloodthirster. With the introduction of Bloodline and Gluttonous Greaves, Riftmaker is not that much of a mandatory item anymore, especially if you face very squishy team compositions. For example, let's take a look at the enemy team here. It's Caitlyn, Annie, Yone and Fiora with, well, the Blitzcrank. Which means they're not as tanky as you believe they are, and therefore getting high AD values will just be very beneficial. Keep in mind, Bloodthirster grants up to 80 AD by the way. That is a lot. And if you consider that Ezreal's first ability I think has a 1.3 ratio with AD, as well as the Ascent Reaver build, grant you 25% crit anyway. You then have 50% crit, which then allows you to actually consistently crit in the form of at least a coin flip, whereas 1 and 4 was not really that reliable, but at least 1 and 2 is way more reliable, and you don't really lose out on too much. So, let's take a good look at the game, but first, let's talk about the matchup. In this very instance, we have an Ezreal and a Janna into Caitlyn and Blitzcrank. The biggest issue against Blitzcrank is you have to stay away. If you get hooked by him, you probably die, and just running Bone Plating is a very beneficial thing for you. The issue is Janna's laning phase is actually weaker than before, and it's not as easy for her to bully people. On the flip side, it's kind of gotten harder to kill her, but she's just a silent spectator. Janna should rush Harmonic Echoes in combination with Ingenious Hunter, it's just the best combination possible. And for Ezreal here, we have the laning set up for Kraken, so he can auto-attack quite freely. The biggest issue in this lane, next to the Blitzcrank, is Caitlyn's superior range. Both Ezreal and Janna can't really get into range, and really depend on the Blitzcrank to mess up. The moment Blitzcrank uses his first ability, they can do whatever they want, but if Blitzcrank never hooks, it looks a little bit more dire. So for every matchup you play, you have to ask yourself the following. Level 1, Level 2, Level 3. How does this change? What happens level 1? We can all assume that Blitzcrank will start with the first ability, or Q. With this in mind, face checking a brush is very dangerous. Unless you can guarantee that you win the early all-in. Which means if they walk into a brush to fistfight them level 1, the Janna needs to be the one that gets hooked, and then they both need to attack the Caitlyn and hope that they kill her fast enough. Is this reliable? Not necessarily. So, what happens next? On level 2, it really depends on how much damage you've dealt to them. For example, let's say you take away 30% of their HP bar, and you happen to get level 2 first, which then allows you to play way more aggressively. And then things get substantially easier. On the other hand, killing a Caitlyn is literally impossible unless she makes a mistake. So this lane, unless the enemy makes a mistake, as in Blitzcrank using Q, not much will happen and it will look very boring. But let's take a good look at how they maneuver themselves through the lane and what happens. Okay. Echo starts with the Croc camp and jungles towards the top side, maybe even goes for a free camp clear, and we just use our first ability on Janna into the brush to know that they're not in the brush. They keep their distance, just making sure that they don't die. What Janna could have done is place a control ward here, and the AD carry keeps his normal ward just to have it for the river later on. But yeah, brush control is very important against Blitzcrank, because if this champion cannot move forward, he can't really play. I don't know what Janna is trying to do, why she's hiding. And that we don't have a ward here is really bad for us. Like right now, this lane is literally a 1v2 scenario in which we are basically getting punished because we are not using our lane advantage. Like currently, Janna is just a spectator. Let's just go back in time for a second to make you understand the biggest issue. So the only assumption I have right now for Janna's positioning is that she might fear that he's getting invaded. That's the only assumption. Because other than this, there's no reason for her not to be like with Ezreal here. Because if she's with Ezreal here, him being a melee champion is a big issue for Caitlyn. Because again, we basically draw these lines here. This is in case of the Janna. And these are all interaction lines. Blitzcrank cannot magically hook through minions, which means he's a melee champion, categorize him as melee, she's a range champion, she's on range, nothing can happen to Ezreal, because he's also a range champion. So with Janna here and being a little bit more forward, for example, somewhere here, as long as there's one minion, Blitzcrank can't magically do anything, and they both can try to create a 2v1 scenario and punish the Blitzcrank for being a melee champion, with like an 18-second cooldown on his only ability to punish you pre-level 2. And realistically speaking, Blitzcrank can only be a problem if he hits level 3, because he then gains access to his second ability and his third ability, which then allows him to actually reach you, which against the Janna is really unreliable, because she has 2 Q charges and she could just Q him away and just say, nope, not today. And again, if the Blitzcrank doesn't honor one thing a support player needs to do, basically blocking the direct way of direct skill shots, like linear skill shots, the Blitzcrank will still lose. But yeah, right now nothing is happening. We are not abusing the fact that we are double range into melee ranged. So the enemy is allowed to just play. Also that we don't have a ward here, down there is a big issue for us, because it costs us. Like right now, this lane stage should never be a thing. We should never walk up like this in the first place. Yeah, like nothing has been achieved with what we have done so far, and Ezreal is forced to play backward. We have seen Blitz vanish into Fog of War, now he's back. Janna didn't even get XP. Now we lost Glacial Augment, which is a major loss, by the way. And yet again, we have to yield brush positioning. We get hooked, we will lose a substantial amount of HP, and the Caitlyn gets to attack us. Like, this could have been even worse if the Caitlyn was faster with her fingers. But yeah, as you see, like support champions in lane basically dictate so much. On the other hand, Caitlyn is less dependent on her support champion, but she's really dependent on winning lane. But she's a way better laner than Ezreal. And now we're at a point where we can potentially die, but not anymore. Now the Blitzcrank lost his hook, which means the Ezreal can now play super aggressive. Like, he's looking for a second ability, maybe a quick combo is his third ability, but if the Caitlyn is smart, he loses a lot of HP. Okay, he missed a spell, but now the Blitzcrank griefed and he can walk up for free. Quick little trade, you see, most Ezreal players will not actually go for it. But if you start understanding that Ezreal is actually not a really bad laner, and all that needs to happen is you hitting your spells in a quick combo, you realize how much damage he does. Now we have a big problem. Ezreal started backing off, Janna got hooked, and now she is forced to flash. He can't even trade anything back. Like, really, coming back to the early idea of laning, Janna wins early game against Blitz because he's a melee champion as long as she doesn't get hooked. But if she doesn't have an HP advantage over him, he will just look at him, and the Blitzcrank will just win. You need to punish melee champions for being melee champions. They cannot defend themselves against ranged champions if you block off certain conditions. If he can't hook you, he can't reach you. If he can't reach you, he's not a threat. And if he's not a threat, why aren't you hitting him first? Now this wave will be crashed as fast as possible, and then we go for River Vision because we have a downtime, or we potentially go for Crux. Like it depends on what we want to do, but now we want to maximize gold. He gets the little Croc, 24 gold extra gained. A play on the map is happening, Eddie rotated up there, and now we just basically go for brush control, go for poke damage, and we want to hit the Caitlyn. Because if the Caitlyn is low enough, even if the Blitz hits a hook, it doesn't matter anymore because she takes too much damage. Like you see, she got hooked right now, and they could go for a turn here. The issue is Blitzcrank is 5, and Janna isn't. But they can turn this onto the Caitlyn. Blitz played really well, keeping his hook. And then just Caitlyn keeps on bullying. Yone comes around the corner, the Blitzcrank gets stunned up, gets taken down, and the Yone is still around. Now we need to be really careful because the Yone can come from Fog of War. We have no confirmation if he ever took a crap and if he can get his 3rd Q stack, then he can come back with his Ghost and just instantly one-tap us. We have Manamune, very important reset, and now we can basically start playing the game. With a completed Manamune, we have so much more damage than before. Like now we can actually one-tap somebody if they make a mistake. Caitlyn apparently also seemed to have stayed to just fix the wave, and you see as he walks back to lane, he is spamming his abilities because he wants to get the Manamune stacking. If he gets the hit on the Caitlyn, he doesn't. Like right now, any damage on Caitlyn is really relevant because it's so helpful for us, and the Blitzcrank is just so smart. Look what he did. On his way back, the Blitzcrank used Fog of War to hide and then go for a play. Like he used a spot which is obviously very unlikely to be warded, simply due to the nature of how the lane was played, and then punishes the Ezreal for his aggression because Caitlyn was playing quote-unquote a bait. Now if the Caitlyn was an absolute gigafake, I should have already pre-placed the trap here earlier, as she understood what the Blitzcrank wanted to do, and then the guy could have actually potentially, like Kranix could have died. Beautiful cancel on the Caitlyn ult, and yeah, we go home again. That was a lot of damage. Very well played by the Blitzcrank, just understanding that Fog of War is very powerful to abuse, and that's something you should also keep in mind. Like if you don't see anyone, keep the option in your mind that the person might be trying to do this to you, and then you will not get caught by this, and you will not lose an entire wave and platings on top. Now the Caitlyn doesn't have mana, and we still have exhaust available. So if the Blitzcrank now messes up, we have a kill window, because the enemy now wants to reset, and now we should try our hardest to stop their reset. So you will see him walk up to try and deny their resets. Yeah, he gets the reset denial, very easy. Even if he gets hooked, it's actually helpful for him because he doesn't have to use his movement spell to get closer to Caitlyn, who then wants to flash away. Now the Blitzcrank kind of helped him out of despair, but yeah, you saw, enemy has no resources, Caitlyn has no mana, she has an inherent urge to recall, to spend the gold, recharge her resources, and then come back. He knows this, he punishes this, and gets it for free. Also, this ward up there is very important, especially during the early game. If you have full lane control, you can place this ward and pop the vision plant to just know what is going on, to deny the enemy the vision plant, and just have full control. Now he'll probably dictate or tell his teammates to please go for Herald, because it's the best objective in the game, and he can just hammer away at those lovely turret platings. The question now is, okay, Janna didn't even rotate there, she's sharing gold. This is something I personally don't really like. I think it would have been better if Janna just walked mid lane and give him solo gold, because there was not really any protection needed. But yeah, it's okay. If it accelerates her harmonic echoes, then it's fine. Blitzcrank is mid lane, griefing his team right now, getting like he gets so much gold for free. I don't even know where the enemy AD carry went to. He probably went to Narnia, getting depressed from what has happened during the laning phase, due to the one slight mess up, and now he walks forward. Big mistake. We have seen all people on the map. If we hit every single spell, the person is just dead. We sadly don't. But yeah, no fear. Instantly going for the enemy and going for time to get the kill. Like there was no enemy on the map that was able to get here, and it's just completely free. using his Q to get a cooldown reset, and barely surviving. Nice attempt here. Again, as an Ezreal player, if you have cooldowns like on your ultimate or anything, and you want to get your money immune stacking anyway, walk past jungle camps as you're on your way to the next objective and hit the jungle camps with the spells, just to get more cooldown reduction on your spells, because your first ability reduces cooldowns of every one of your abilities apart from your own first ability by 1.5 seconds. On PC, it's sadly the case, or it is the case, that you even lose the cooldown on your first ability, which is very overpowered if you consider high ability haste builds, but here in this game, it's not the case. With the bot lane tower gone, you also see that he's walking mid lane to take down another tower. As an AD carry, you obviously always want to go where you get the most gold consistently. And if the enemy has bad wave clear or just isn't as strong and you can just basically force things, you can just take down the mid lane tower or the Baron lane tower. Like, let's for example say the enemy mid laner is very good at wave clearing. You obviously don't go mid lane because then you're AFK and don't do anything. You rather go for the Baron lane and take down this one because it's substantially easier to kill. Blitzcrank is for whatever reason getting a little bit antsy here, goes forward, gets absolutely blasted, and Yone walks forward for the fruit, and he's like, he's playing a dangerous game of chicken. Who's gonna go there? Am I gonna pick up the fruit? Am I gonna walk away? He's taken a necessary risk, and now Chronix picks up the fruit anyway. Now we have an option to go for deep vision into the enemy jungle, looking for potential enemy wards and everything. Nothing on the map is happening again. Next wave is coming in. He has enough time to recall, goes for the Essence Reaver. Many of you don't know, Essence Reaver helps you to stay topped off in the department of mana, because nowadays if you use Mana Immune, which, well, every Ezreal build basically has, you lose so much mana if you start spamming your spells, because all your spells, number one, consume mana, and the fully evolved Mura mana consumes even more on spell hit. So you will see how much mana he will lose by just using his spells here. And just as old, if it hits somebody, it's just so crazy. And they nearly got this as well. Sadly, no ward, goes forward for the shift. Going in, Blitzcrank is angry, Annie is angry, but the Janna is there to save the day. On the sad part, like right now, he spends so much time on mid lane that he got so much, like he could have had so much more gold, I believe, if he just put himself on the Baron lane. Fiora is a known duelist, and if they force Fiora into a duelist situation, like they will just kill the Fiora. They will just deny her. He now denied enemy home guards, making them slower to walk on the map. And generally speaking, normally as an AD carry, you clear your bot lane tower, and then you rotate towards mid lane, usually, and then you stay there because it's the safest area. But if you're so far ahead and can force plays, go to the lane where you can force plays, where they can't clear the wave, where the enemy rotations aren't fast enough, and just take down another tower. You will then naturally force the enemy into rotations, which eventually lead up to you gaining your team more gold and obviously access to jungle. Because for example, if you take the entire Baron lane tower, you get access to their top lane jungle. And if the game goes into the later stages of the game, as an AD carry, you obviously want to stay where it's the safest. And here we basically play a game of chicken. Okay, we see her, she has a stun available. So what he needs to be doing now is he can walk up, he can keep this tagged, like he can tap this and hover it here, so he can instantly dodge the Tibbers. He doesn't do it, but reacts fast enough. And yeah, like you just see what the enemy has and you know what can happen, and if you just realize what they can do, you react faster. Now he looks for the enemy Caitlyn, walks into a trap, but it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Fiora appears behind him, exhausts her. Will she be able to kill him? Harmonic Echoes is just too broken. It's just how it goes. Like, he just survived. Janna shielded him, Harmonic Echoes healing comes around the corner, and they're chilling. Now, immediately after the fight, he goes for the wave, and it wouldn't surprise me if he takes down the mid lane tower and then tries to pillage the enemy jungle camps. And there we go. Always pillage the enemy jungle camps. They don't get anything, we take it all. And if possible, he keeps one or two alive, one is optimal, of these little raptors so the camp doesn't respawn and the enemy jungle has to clear them for ages. But Croc Camp, it doesn't work as intended, sadly, and we just yoink this here. Because the moment you kill the big Croc, the camp will, to my knowledge, respawn after some time, and for whatever reason, it doesn't happen on the Raptor camp unless I'm misinformed. His team had some unfortunate accident on the map for whatever reason, you know how it goes in WildRift, and he's back onto the map, walking back to mid lane, because there's an incoming wave. On the Baron lane, you see a wave running into the tower, so there's nothing happening here, and the Caitlyn walks up and gets absolutely blasted, and he protobattles into the wall, but he survives. Janna just keeps him safe, and then he just runs down the Annie and the Caitlyn. Like right now, he is super fat, has super high damage, and can basically do whatever we want, and we nearly reached a point where we can literally one-tap people. We have the Trinity Force in our pocket, and now we'll build towards the Bloodthirster. With the Bloodthirster then in our inventory, we gain so much AD that if you also happen to crit, luckily, you completely demolish people. As an AD carry as well, we consume resources, we are fed, we are the ones carrying, so we basically take every resources to make sure that we keep on carrying. It might sound very selfish, but AD carry is a very selfish role, and if you're already hardcore ahead, it's not a bad thing to take those resources on top. Many of you will disagree with this and deem it unfun because you're quote-unquote ruining the game for other people, but I hate to break it to you. If the jungler is playing a carry jungle role and has put himself behind, or you're so far ahead that you can use these resources better, then it is just trying to win. You're just trying to win by taking these resources. He's spotting the Caitlyn being alone, looking for the backline. The enemy Annie has now a crown. He can't really shift onto her to want her, but he has to keep the distance. Like, he has to play max range and wait for the Annie to turn, because it's right now there wasn't a window for the Annie to turn because there's not any follow-up damage, but the moment he walks up, he might get instantly killed. And as an Ezreal, you really want to make sure to use your spells, like your first ability, into the brushes to make sure to not get hit. He gets comboed by the Annie, but now the Annie is griefing. Like, you see? Let's just break it down why he just shifts over the wall, okay? So he saw one person, he saw one, he saw one, he saw two, right? So with that in mind, he now walks away, he sees another Blitzcrank, he sees another person, he sees multiple people, he can just shift over the wall, he sees everyone that is involved, Fiora now makes her appearance, nobody can be here. 1, 2, 1, 1. Nobody but her can be here, and she cannot one-shot him with him here. So if the Annie does anything, she just loses something. Boom. Wasted. Complete wasted. Now Annie is a non-factor. Unluckily, he doesn't get this buff. Echo dies somehow to the Caitlyn, who was completely out of the game. Yone ults in, get exhausted instantly, and there he just doesn't take any damage. With Annie not having ultimate, they simply don't have enough burst damage, and this Blitzcrank is not a threat anymore. Nobody here is a threat. He can just walk forward and nothing happens to him. And Caitlyn, as you see, the Caitlyn is like, I don't want to participate in anything my team is doing. I think it's stupid, and she's just side laning. And it's working, because many people, for whatever reason, don't punish that, or for whatever reason, lose to that. This is basically the typical illness of every WildRift game, where people disregard side lanes to the maximum. They really don't care. They are really just disregarding every single wave on the map, and then they wonder, why is my GPM only 700? Well, if you don't go for any wave and let side waves die to each other on cooldown, you don't have any XP, you don't have any items, you don't have any gold, you can't play. And what you can do is you can create slow pushes into the enemy base at neutral objectives. For example, this wave down here. We can thin it out in a way that it will naturally push towards here. While this is available, then we can force somebody to clear this over time, because, for example, if we do it right in about like 45 seconds to a minute, depending on how it happens, if we don't just push it like absolute demons, this wave will stack up and walk into this tower, and it will take down this tower at this point in time. While this is happening, and someone, let's just imagine these lines, goes here of the enemy team, this enables us to do this. And it's just super easy to play, because then we have the man advantage, the enemy has to somehow access us, and we just win for free. So now, if we don't believe Baron is an option to be played around, then obviously we play around this, which means this guy walks this, forces one person to come here, but only if this, like when this has spawned. And then we take this for free, while he's maybe giving his life, maybe running away. Really doesn't matter to us, as long as we can make sure they don't get Nashor for free. But yeah, just objectives on the map. Keep in mind that you don't want to get yourself killed for fun, because if he goes like, let's say if he goes there right now, he's griefing. Like, he needs to wait a little bit more for his team to be in position while the objective is available. Because right here you see he still has to clear this. He resets fast enough, making sure he doesn't get cancelled by the cow. That's a close one. And now he has the Bloodthirster. He has so much damage. Sorry. Sometimes I have to drink. The Orianna is able to completely deny the mid push on her own unless she gets flashed on and all in. And now this one hurts. Yeah, this one hurts. And this was with bone plating. Yone jumps on him, he doesn't even have to exhaust, and he just crits him away. And the Annie isn't even a threat at this point. Like, as long as he plays the outer edge of the fight, he can do whatever he wants. Like right now, you see? There's nothing that's a threat to him, but the Caitlyn, look, the Caitlyn actually has, I think, does she have Runans? No, she doesn't. Okay. But yeah, Caitlyn does a funny amount of damage. And yeah, our Jax came to us. There's a massive wave that needs to be dealt with. There's a massive wave down here that needed to be dealt with earlier. And it's just an all-out deathmatch here, right? And if we lost this deathmatch, if this deathmatch was lost, we actually lose the game. And he realizes this massive wave walking into his base that's a game-ending threat. So he just recalls and clears it. Like, this wave alone is so much gold, like 120, that's another 120, right into the bank, and those are multiple cans, another 80. Like, that's so much gold. He just got so much gold. That's so many kills for free, and this is something many people just completely disregard for whatever reason. Honestly speaking, it might have been a mistake that he didn't buy Zhonya's when the next fight is probably a game-ending fight, so he really needs to get at least... He can think about Zhonya's or QSS, I think. He could have bought QSS, I think. Caitlyn walks up and just completely obliterates the Caitlyn. One of the things personally that I hate the most when I play Caitlyn or Tristana is sometimes, like, my exhaust, you're like literally in Narnia range and you can't exhaust, which is the biggest issue. But on the other hand, during the laning phase, exhaust is so overbearingly powerful that you really need to have it. And because his team had some fun on the mid lane, dying for fun as well, wasting time, the enemy got Nashor. And there's nothing you could have done about this because he had to recall. Also, quickly explaining to you why mid lane inhibitor is literally the most worthless inhibitor in the entire game. Getting this or not getting this has probably the lowest impact of you winning your games. And here's the reason why. Every single play on the map can be started through mid lane. You can reach every part of the map. You can reach every objective, and you have to fight around mid lane control anyway every single time you go for an objective. For example, you go here, this is available. Rather than just going for this and letting the wave push into you, allowing the enemy to then just go past you and maybe like threaten an end, you clear the mid wave and then you play around the objective. Then you force the enemy into a timer to react, and then you can make a play. If you don't clear the mid wave, you open up, as I said earlier, the enemy the possibility of pushing down mid lane, running straight past you as you're here, and they just walk here with the wave, and then they end the game in front of you, forcing you to recall, then yielding positioning to them at the Nashor, or whatever. You basically give away full control. On the other side, the side lane inhibitors, they force you to do something. Because, if this is happening, you can't start a play from here to here. That is way too long of a rotational way, and it's way too difficult. So when this is happening, a person might even consider buying teleport to just make sure that this wave isn't ending and then rejoin later. But yeah, if you have an objective, this inhibitor taking down these inhibitors is the best for this objective, and naturally speaking, taking down these inhibitors is the best for this objective. Mid lane inhibitor does nothing. It's just basically economy you're feeding into the enemy team, because you'll always have a wave that will push into the enemy, granting them more gold and XP naturally, but on the other hand, it will also be like a moving ward, which will help you gain control on the map if you pay close attention. But if the enemy uses this smartly and goes in between waves, they might catch you off guard and, well, punish you. Anyway, back to the video. Now we've reached a point where Ezreal is just a menace. But Ezreal is not the best champion to carry, and this soul is also not really helping him too much. Like, you deal a little bit more true damage after a few seconds, like 10% of your damage, but you're a poke champion, it's just a one-time use. I really prefer the old dragons. And now we're at a point where we are at the risk of basically getting one-tapped if any hits us, and enemies there to follow up. One might even make the argument that buying Crown would be a valid purchase here for Ezreal, simply because it would deny the enemy's one-shot potential, allowing you to play it completely different. Obviously speaking, Cyrilda's Grudge is more damage, offers more utility, and is just overall the more powerful damage item, and here he completely buffers the Blitzcrank hook. In case many of you don't know, Ezreal's E, Tristana W, and even Caitlyn E, if timed right, can buffer yourself out of crowd control. So the Blitzcrank hooks you, and you can use your third ability, your Tristana second ability, or your Caitlyn third ability. If you time it right, on Caitlyn it's the hardest, you can completely deny this CC. With that done, the Caitlyn is now in big trouble, but he can't shift after right now. There's too much danger on the screen, and he has to play the very back line of the fight, trying to just poke as much as possible and getting free damage off. One of the bigger benefits of this build as well is you have insane sustain. Now Fiora reaches also the point where she just basically spits on Jax. Like, a good Fiora at this point can kill Jax in not even 1 second if she does it right. Enemy also going for Elder. Like, all of this happened due to mistakes of his own team, and they even get the Elder. The Yone goes in, probably survives as well. The Annie misses the Tibbers. If this one hits, it's a secure end. Is the Fiora ending? The Fiora died to the Orianna in the base with like little to no HP. It's an absolute disaster for the enemy team. They lost 2 Elder Dragons. He's now on the hunt to kill Caitlyn. He can one-tap the Caitlyn if she walks past the point of no return. If she's just... Oh my god, she got so lucky. And she got completely blown up. Now, 3 Elders are gone. Only Annie and Yone have Elder. Also, another thing worthy of note, he doesn't get any stronger anymore. Like, we have Cyrilda's Grudge now, we do not get stronger. And the Orianna dies. It's a crime. It's a crime scene. Like, he's now forced to fix waves on multiple sides of the map, being at risk of being one-tapped by either the Annie or the Yone. Like, he moves up, perfect awareness, completely denies the Yone's attempts of getting him killed and nearly kills him. Figuring out where the Yone is hiding, trying to deal some extra damage to him, and he nearly kills him with that Ascends Reaver buffed up ultimate. What a juicy damage play. Now, the Yone is probably recalling, and he knows this. Annie is still hiding up there. She has Crown, so we can't really kill her, and the next objective is spawning, and Fiora keeps on split pushing. The Jax cannot hold her anymore. So the real question is, can we, as a team of 2 people, because Orianna is randomly walking down there, deny the enemy the ability to take Baron Nashor, while our team as a 3-man squad denies... Yeah, okay, Caitlyn, come on. Come on, Caitlyn. I have just no excuse for what the Caitlyn just did. That was just straight up griefing. Caitlyn just did one of the few things that can make them lose the game. Like, it's still not won for Chronix, but Caitlyn, for whatever reason, thought it's a good idea to just run it down. And now we see Fiora chasing down the Jax, and we are making plays mid lane. The Blitzcrank is running in, we just avoid him, we have somebody in front of us. The Blitzcrank misses and gets absolutely blown up, and as long as the Jax is alive, everything is fine. There is enough time, and we just need to get Nashor as fast as possible and turn on the Yone. If we get to hit the Yone, he just instantly dies, and Echo just goes for this play a little bit early, catches the Yone, and kills him. Now this should be a secure play, but for whatever reason, the Orianna is still here, wasting her time. It doesn't matter if she is here, like she really needed to listen to him to defend with the Jax, because the Jax alone can't hold. And Caitlyn goes in for another play where she just chooses to suicide. With Fiora dead now, this should be a complete wrap. Like, all of them died, and it's over. It is just crazy to see. Like, at every point, if any mistake was made, it's just death. But again, let's talk about briefly about what happened during the laning phase and what could have been done better. Again, if you play against the melee support has to somehow bridge the distance between you and the ranged champion, or between himself and the ranged champion, and therefore you can abuse him in some ways. What does it do against him? What can you do against him? And how can he potentially reach you? For example, Flash, for example, level 3 with access to all his abilities, and therefore getting to you. If he can't get to you, there's no threat, meaning you can hit him for free, and you should always hit enemies for free. You should punish them for everything they do. And that's it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to follow him in the comments, like in the description below. I have a link attached to his channel. You can follow him there. He streams frequently. And yeah, leave a comment to boost the algorithm. And that's it. Thank you all for watching. And if you want more RiftGuides content, well, you know what to do. And also, if you want to look at me playing on my second channel where I just upload raw gameplay, well, do yourself a favor, knock yourself out, see me inting. Anyways, see you soon.